This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. Don't touch that dial. Hi, everybody. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. And today we have a special guest for you, George Cisneros. George is a risk management specialist with one of my companies, Jelinski Advisory Group. He helps people empower their lives financially from a faith-based perspective, also showing them how to grow and protect their wealth in uncertain times. What's your journey? How did you get started in finance?
I grew up fourth generation in a Manhattan, Wall Street area restaurateur family. All of our clientele and my parents' friends were wealthy, and I got to know them. I made the decision, and I really think it was just a spot of wisdom from God, to walk away from the restaurant and alcohol business. My father's an amazing man. He didn't put any pressure on me. Anyone that's in a closely held family business knows there's an unspoken pressure. I was the only son, and he gave me my blessing to walk away. And I met with a lot of the wealthy clients, clientele that ate lunch every day. We were in the Woolworth building, a block away from the World Trade Center. So I would talk with them, and they said, maybe you might want to try finance because I like the people side of it. I'm analytical based, enjoyed mathematics, had a minor in economics. I got a life and health insurance license, and I gravitated to group health insurance because I like the personal one-on-one, working with a family, working with the employees. And that grew all the way into a third-party administration company where we would do self-insurance groups for thousands of employees and so forth. And when managed care moved into New Jersey, we sold that business.
So it was your own business. You were the owner?
I was a partner, co-owner.
Where were
Yes,
they based out of? Ocean City area?
Hamilton.
Hamilton. Dear listener said, and this kind of spurred me to have you on. He said, Josh, I want you to do an episode on the philosophy behind giving
Mm.
and the philosophy of stewardship and giving and joy is better than managing our wealth with hoarding and fear, which is interesting. Exactly what you said. I want you to talk about that. But projections, you mentioned projections. Why do projections not work? Our whole industry is based on projections. And we went to a guy who said, you shouldn't project anything.
Yes,
Like
yes.
that any projection, whether it's a life insurance illustration, a financial planning illustration, is worthless. That seems so foreign. So tease that out. Like somebody's never heard that before. Why should they not base their life on a projection?
We have an economy in America that is not only the greatest economy now, but in human history. Every other economy, and let's just take Russia, for example. If oil ever goes below $50 a barrel, they're in a lot of trouble. But what Russia has is 5, 10, and 15-year plans. In America, there's no national plan. It's free market within each person. You, as a business owner of Jelinski Advisory Group, you do not have any dictates that have been set before you or that you have set. There's an old saying, an organization should stay an organism, a living thing that's always reacting to its environment. And that's why America every year, the economy is exceptional because no one's following a script. Everyone is acting in their best interest. And that's Adam Smith's great analogy of the invisible hand. If I seek to do what's right by you, my customer, in the end, I will excel so much beyond my competitors that you will continue to come to me and I will get more than what I want.
Think of Jeff Bezos. Company's worth $1 trillion. He's worth 150 billion. He's created 850 billion of wealth for other people.
Right. And he just wanted to sell books. Right. But he kept making right decisions along the way.
There was no projection in essence.
No.
The first projection was books. Why do most people fail, financially speaking? Like, why do people do these plans? They go to planners, and yet life doesn't really happen like they think it's going to work out.
The way the financial institutions tell people to hold their money and just park it and don't touch it, that enables the financial institutions to experience high velocities. And that's why they always have double digit returns. And that's what Bob Castellone taught you and I, and you do this so well with the entire organization here of we build those into our clients. And I've had many advisors ask me, well, why are you guys so busy and what's this with the model and everything? And I would show them and they'd say, well, that probably takes a little more time because you're teaching them new concepts. And I said, yes, but they're true, but it's truth. And I've had advisors just look at me and say, I can't be bothered with that. I really just want to take the path of least resistance and build a nice bank account of my own. Dealing with people's money, I mean, anyone can just do it. But the way I see it, and probably because of my upbringing and my heritage, I see it as a calling that has a much higher accountability. If you just want to sell a product and just make an income, that's great, but don't do it in this business because when you're integral in dealing with people's money, you are affecting your life.
It's a great stewardship.
It's stewardship is everything.
You talk about the generational problem.
Yes.
First generation business owner with their kids. Talk about that.
There's a saying, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in three generations. And basically what that's surmising is the first generation grows up modest, maybe poor, works so hard and accumulates wealth. And they think about how tough they had it and they look at their kids and the first mistake they make is they say, I'm going to give my kids everything I never had. And that's okay if you're building meritocracy along with it. But most of the time, meritocracy is not built with the privilege that they're given. And so the second generation, everything, all the struggles that first generation had to go through to get thick skin to accomplish, the school of hard knocks that got them to where they are, they've shielded their kids from that. Now there are many families where they're proactive in this. The shirt sleeves can be overcome, but it happens by default. So the second generation is privileged, wastes the money, and there's a lot of conflict between the first and second generation. The first generation wants to hand it to the kids, to the and the kids just say, "I'm not going to work that hard. I want to work like 9 to 4." And the third generation is looking at this turmoil and just says, "I don't want nothing to do with it," and they're back to working manual labor shirt sleeves. Now, what's interesting about this is most people say, "Well, that'll never happen in my family." Not only is that saying here in America, but in Asia, they have records of it back a couple thousand years. It's called rice paddy to rice paddy in three generations. And in Europe, it's wooden shoes to wooden shoes in three generations. So it's basically, it comes with the belly button. It's inherent, but it can be overcome. And the whole key to it is communication. It can be solved pretty easily.
So me, I'm a first generation. What do I do with my kids?
It's sitting down, taking a look at what you're doing with them, talking about conversations you have with them, and then also seeing how it's affecting the kids. There's this great verse in Proverbs 13. It's in 13:22. It says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." But the second part of that verse is, "But the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous." So I looked at that the first time and I thought, oh my goodness, that is such a divergence. I want the first part. How do I avoid the second part? Well, the second part is we're familiar with that, with the verse, train up a child in the way they should go. And when they are older, they won't depart from it. And when I studied the Hebrew of this train up, And I heard a Christian vine dresser talk about this. In other words, someone who works at a big vineyard and trains up the vines for a harvest. It's a real science. What he said was, it's the perfect example. A vine has a natural bent as it comes up. Everyone is different. And so what the vine dresser does is it enables towards the bent to strengthen it and ties it off that way. So that's why when you look at a vineyard, there's vines going every which way. But too many times the first generation will try and say, I want to pull that vine closer so it looks just like me, so it can take over the business. And this is where we stifle our kids, and there's a lot of unspoken.
So the burger chain, you made me think of what's that, In and Out? I believe her name is Lindsay Snyder. She took ownership of her father's share of In and Out Burger.
How's she doing with it?
Well, she blew it up. Snyder inherited the company, and basically her inheritance was valued at 450 million. Her company's easily worth, $10 billion. And what's interesting is she had a wayward period, and then she came back to the faith, and she's just advancing In and Out to no level. She had 3 marriages by 36, battled with alcohol and marijuana. But the point is, it's hard to be the kid of a successful business owner. So you talk about these unspokens. What are the unspokens?
When you spend the time with your child, really, really trying to understand what their gifts are, what gets them excited, and moving to that. Wow, what would that look like? When you think about how you have this math capability where you far exceed everyone in your class. What do you think you would ever want to do with that? Do you like space? Do you like and really, really dream with them and encourage them towards that their bent in their individual line. And this is where the grandparents get involved, because now the grandparents can spend time with the kids. And let's say that they just sit and say, What interests you?" When one kid says it's animals, or it's this, or it's that, or something in the community. And what they do is they talk about this, and the grandparent helps them pull it out to some way in which they can give to an organization or a group of people. Or, let's say I like cowboy and Indian movies, and I really like Indians. What's happening to American Indians? Well, this is what's going on. Would you like to go visit them? What this is doing, because the kids have grown up with privilege, they're now realizing as they go out and they're getting involved and they're saying, wow, all of a sudden it hits them. It was the luck of the draw. I could have been born into this family. And there's a humility that starts to come and a thankfulness. And as the child realizes it, they feel less demanding of privilege, and they start to ask questions of their parents and their grandparents.
I'm more pushy as a baseball dad or a soccer dad than a business dad, which is funny. My eldest, who has zero interest in the business, she has a bent towards mock trial. She's an excellent mock trial attorney. She's a writer, could be an attorney. She loves drama. She logs everything, like almost like a bookkeeper. I think she'd be great in the business. So what do I do? Just like kind of let her come to me when she's older? Hey, Dad, I want to work for you, or what do I do?
Challenge her in those gifts. Say, wow, it's so exciting to see how much you love writing. Would you like to take a course on writing?
Yeah, no, we've done that. Yeah, yeah.
It's important for kids to know they have the freedom, that there's no expectations.
Yeah.
Just the word trust. A lot of times kids will overhear their parents talking about, oh yeah, we set up a couple trusts. A lot of people don't realize. You know what the kids in the other room thinking? The kids are thinking, well, does that mean they don't trust us? See, your kids, if you're wealthy, whatever you're at, your kids know you're wealthy. If you don't start to communicate it, you don't have to tell them what your net worth is, your net wealth, but you communicate things. You communicate the blessings that come with it, but also the challenges that come with it. So I made a lot of mistakes. And I would just always go to my kids and say, I'm so sorry. You know, what daddy did or whatever, that's not Christ. I'm a baby Christian, please forgive me. I was just being vulnerable. Transparency is big. We learn that from the word transparency and vulnerability.
So, really, all of those key attributes will help a business owner with their kids: transparency, vulnerability. It's very interesting. I talked to Tony Robbins. I interviewed him one time and I said, what is the thing you can't teach your kid? The hardest thing, he helps all these wealthy families, was hunger. So, you know what you do? You starve your kids. Now, if you're doing fairly well, your kids are spoiled, even if you don't think they are. So, how do you create a culture of non-entitlement?
My daughter wrote well, and I would challenge her. I say, you don't have to do this, but there's a writing contest at the public library. I really think you should push yourself, become a contestant, and see how you do. And I was so happy when she didn't win because she hadn't. It would have been great if she did, but it was things like that where along the way they have to, the saddest thing is everybody gets a trophy in T-ball. No, they need to learn at an early age. You will win and some will lose.
So, let's talk about the whole concept of stewardship. What have you learned about stewardship that you would like to share with our listeners and viewers?
Stewardship isn't just about money. We are to be stewards of our time. There's many parables in the New Testament by Jesus about stewards, but there's no parable where it says a steward delegates to another steward. What goes on a lot in our business is people want to cut to the chase and sell something, and without really understanding and being counsel to the client, because really God is the master in the parable and the client is the steward. And so the steward is not supposed to delegate to another steward. There's no parable. But what he's to do, twice in Proverbs, it says, where there's many counselors, plans succeed. And the Hebrew word for many is not numerical. It's different types of people that are different from you that can point out blind spots to help you round out your vision. So stewardship comes in a lot of forms, but there's more verses in Proverbs about communication than any other subject. Communication, the lack of it causes much sadness, and all the more communication can only eventually heal. Sometimes it has to be confrontational, with love and grace.
Proverbs 11, you talk about faith and investment and velocity. Talk a little about this velocity of money concept.
In Proverbs 11:24, it says, there is one who scatters, yet increases more. And there is one who withholds more than is right, but it leads to poverty. And we should always look at a verse in context. The verse before it, the desire of the righteous is only good, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath. That goes back to what we were talking about projection, assuming into the future, expectation. Why should I have what kind of expectations should I have other than the promises of God? Everything else I need to be diligent and I need to co-labor with him. Verse 25 right after that. The generous soul will be made rich, and he who waters will also be watered himself. Our resources are a test of our faith and how clear our thinking is. If we feel we need to hoard it in, then there's a lot of other things going on. We have fear, we have paranoia, we have greed. Close to all of the verses about a rich man in the Bible are negative. A rich man disadvantaged other people to advantage himself. The prosperous man in the Bible is the man that all the areas of his life are on an even keel. There's shalom, there's peace. His finances, his fellowship, how he's accepted in the community, his relationship with his family. It's finding that place of shalom in all places in our life. And so we're to be stewards of relationships as much as we are resources.
I know you've shared, there's a lot of people go through Dave Ramsey type courses, financial peace. And I know you're burdened for the traditional financial planning philosophy that really weighs people down. Talk about that.
Once you get past Ramsey's, those first steps, right? Get out of debt, have an emergency fund. That's great. Do the envelope system, even if you have to, that's great. But everything after that is just the traditional things that financial institutions tell people to do. There's really no difference. And but he just strategically places a verse around them so they look different. Um, I don't know anyone wealthy that has, and I've been on the planet a long time. Um, I don't know anyone that has business savvy, understands money and finances, or is wealthy that stuck with Dave Ramsey all through their wealth. They, maybe it helped them get out of debt when they were young and get on a good track, but they eventually gravitate to where they learn the ways that that true wealth is accumulated. Because of what I've been through in my life and what I've seen, that God just puts this on my heart that we need to stick by principles and have the faith comes in standing by the principle and knowing that in time his promises will be kept.
You talk about water, electricity, food, breathing. Why? Like, what's the importance of that?
That's an empirical example of the scattering and gathering and more. You look at the cycle of water. It starts in the ocean, it evaporates, it becomes clouds, it rains over the rainforest that gives us oxygen. It ends up in rivers and it's back in the ocean. Electricity, there must be a closed circuit or it doesn't work. The honeybee, look at what we're learning about how our food supply is in jeopardy because of the honeybee, the cycle. And going back to the water, where's the one place where water has no outlet? What do we call it? The Dead Sea.
So that's an example of the velocity of money. Basically, it comes back to you, your generosity. You base your life on joy, on family, on memories. You very little base it on money. Money is the tool, it is not the goal. Or, like you said, it is the servant, it's not your master.
God doesn't need our money. What he's trying to do is teach us, just like you shared so well, not to be focused on it. When we give to someone some purpose, whether if you believe in God, you're giving to God's work, or even if you don't believe in God, you're giving to some purpose bigger than you. There's science on it. There's actual empirical science how it affects our brain and our body. Our cells are regenerated. We're just made this way. If you have a Chevy, um, there's probably an owner's manual in the glove compartment, and it's put out by Chevy. And what we believe is that we have a creator, we have someone, and he's given us an owner's manual. And it's not just about hoping in things I cannot see, but science is always catching up to the Bible. It's not opposite it, it's catching up. And so, with everything that we're learning about physiology, cognitively, it just reinforces the things that we know to be true. And if there's a challenge in wanting to give, find a purpose, find something that you care about. I've heard many stories where there's somebody wealthy in town and they will call up the mayor or they'll go into a bank and they'll say, "Give me your hardest luck story." A couple that has a mortgage at this bank, and they both lost their jobs. The plant closed up or something, and they're otherwise good people. People have gone in and paid off their mortgage and told the banker, "Do not tell them who paid it off. Do something. Do It's going to come back to you. It's going to come back to you."
There are similar themes in other world religions like Buddhism and
Humility is a very common theme.
yeah. And you talk about this is an interesting thing. Wealth will reduce to your wisdom level, meaning your level of wealth will be directly correlated to your level of wisdom. What do you mean by that?
Wisdom is more important than the financial wealth. When you look up this word inheritance in the Hebrew, the fullness of the meaning goes into the makeup, the nature, the moral content of the person. In other words, verse 22 is where it says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteousness." Oh my goodness, that's quite a disparity. What's the difference between the two? And so, what the Bible teaches us is not to sit and wonder what that verse means, but to look at a verse in context. So, when we look at the entire chapter of Proverbs 13, it's talking about the things that a righteous man does and the things that a wicked person does. And you can pretty much summarize it to the righteous man does things that is beneficial and generous to his community. And the wicked person is always looking for a way to take advantage and to disadvantage someone else. There's only 31 chapters in Proverbs, and the first 9 chapters, almost one third of the book, is the father speaking into the young child. So that's going to be the differentiator between the inheritance that continues to the children's children versus the wealth of a sinner being stored up for the righteous. And isn't that interesting that the wealth of a sinner eventually ends up in the hands of the righteous? The righteous person didn't take it. No, it eventually was lost by the sinner and it gravitated to the righteous. Let's say in one year, your income doubles or goes up 50%. People are very quick to say, "Oh, well, God blessed us. Our income doubled." Well, you have to pause for a second and humbly ask, "Well, did I trade off anything? Did I spend a year away from my family?" Again, going back to that prosperous person, did my income double or go up 50%, but I've still maintained
Good quality of life.
good quality of life and relationships?
Yeah, it's all about wholeness, like you said, shalom. Anything that you've not mentioned that you want to mention on this episode on stewardship, faith, money?
To anyone that's listening that is creating a business first generation, look yourself in the mirror when you say, "Oh, that could never happen to me," and just stand there and keep looking at yourself because it's around the world. Shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. It can be overcome and it's overcome every day, but it has to be proactively.
And you help wealthy people overcome that on a regular basis with their kids. George is an amazing counselor, listener, and friend to many clients of the firm. Well, this was a lot of fun. George Cisneros of the Jelinski Advisory Group. And if you want to speak with George, give us a call at 888-988-JOSH, and he will give you your own econometric macroeconomic model for multi-generational wealth planning in your family.